States, there's a prophetic book. There's this book that is just so I just went and revisited the book. I first read the book like 20 years ago. And I just go back and reference that book called Amusing Ourselves by Neil Postman. Amusing Ourselves to Death. And he juxtaposed basically two schools of thoughts about societal control using two very well-known fictional authors. And one was Orwell. Orwell is very well known. And everybody talks about 1984 and Animal Farm, his two most seminal works. And everyone knows the phrase, oh, it's Orwellian. But there's a lesser-known author by the name of Huxley, Aldous Huxley. And he wrote a book called Brave New World. And one of the reasons I think that Brave New World isn't, because you got for 1984 and Animal Farm, there are major motion pictures, there are animated features, all the hipsters and all the hipsters and leftists and Antifa, they all wear 1984 shirts. And when you say, oh, this is Orwellian, everybody knows, even people who aren't politically engaged, everybody knows what Orwellian means. And the reason I think this is because Orwell got it wrong. And I don't think Orwell was bad. I have a phenomenal level of respect for George Orwell. But the reason I think that the society where you can even get a major motion picture, where you even have politicians standing on the floor of the Senate talking about this Orwellian ordeal, the reason why I think it's okay to evoke Orwell is because he was wrong. The reason nobody talks about Huxley is because Aldous Huxley was 100% correct in his analysis and his prediction, and Orwell got it wrong. But it wasn't because Orwell was trying to deceive or lie to us. His analysis just didn't hold up. And I just want to read a passage from by Neil Postman talking about the juxtaposition between Orwell and Huxley, and excuse me, and how it applies to the NFL and to just our media consumptions and our overall modern society in 2020. And these are people writing before civil rights. These are people writing decades, more than half a century ago. But this is Neil Postman. This is Postman talking about these two authors and their analysis. He said, what Orwell feared were those who would ban books. Orwell talked about banning books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban books, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Now, what is more apropos to our condition? Are books being banned by an oppressive state? Or you can go buy any book you want and nobody reads? I'll continue. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that we would we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. So yes, you can go on and learn about anything. I was just yesterday reading about dark matter and how I found out that there's only 4% of all energetic elements are known to humanity. Over 90% of energy and elements are completely unknown, and just call it dark matter. Okay, well, I'll continue. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared that the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture. These are dudes writing this. You want to talk about religious prophecy. There's more prophecy in the Communist Manifesto. There's more prophecy in Orwell and Huxley. There's more prophecy coming from people who study society and human behavior from a scientific and rationalist and socialistic point of view, humanistic point of view, than ever came from people who assert that they're divinely inspired. And it's tell me this couldn't be written today. But I continue. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny fail to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Orwell added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In A Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we fear would ruin us. Huxley feared that what we desire would ruin us. And that's from the introduction to Amusing Ourselves Today. So they oppress us by giving us freedom. They make us ignorant by giving us unlimited access to information. They have us in a position where we celebrate our oppressors instead of fearing them. We embrace our class enemies instead of rejecting them. We have a point where they don't have to come kicking our doors and put us in chains. They put the chains on display in windows, in shopping mall windows, and we go and buy and fight and scrape and save our money to buy the chains to voluntarily put them on ourselves. And then we proudly display our chains amongst our peers. And the NFL is a perfect example of amusing ourselves to death. So the tragedy is not that we are under mass manipulation, mass indoctrination, human misery and oppression. The tragedy is we have all the resources and insights we need to throw off the shackles of oppression, and we don't. That's the tragedy to me. All people have fallen under oppression. You can't name a population that does not have a history of falling under oppression, enslavement, discriminatory conditions. You can't name them. But when you look at it and say, wow, these people have all the power they need, you go back to the Middle Ages and you say, the peasants outnumbered the noblemen 1,000,000 to 1. But instead of, taking your pickaxe and putting it in the head of the king, you out there trying to dig up turnips in frozen soil while your children starve. Instead of rising up against the knights and the other oppressive armed bandits robbing you of your harvest, you rather go to find an old poor woman in your village and burn her and call her a witch. I mean, people 200, 300 years from now, if the capitalists do not destroy all of humanity, if some scumbag that we elect to office doesn't nuke us, if we're still around 300 years ago, people are going to look and say, wow, you mean to tell me over 1.5 billion people suffer from malnutrition while one man had over $100 billion? Who was this Jeff Bezos? How did he get $1 billion? Where did he get all this money from? Did he manufacture anything? No, he didn't manufacture anything. Did he deliver? Did he drive trucks? No. He sat at a desk and made a website for distributing things that other people made. It's like, okay, that's good, okay, but is that $100 billion worth of work? Well, he owned a lot of patents, and then he bought out all his competition. Well, didn't they have laws on the book against monopolistic practices? Yeah, but they stopped enforcing those in the Reagan administration. They're going to look back on us the same way we look back on primitive human beings. Like, how were they so backwards? How would they let just one little tyrant? We look at King Henry VIII. We look at King Louis of France, and these men in powdered wigs and ruffled shirts, wearing knickers and silk stockings. And these men could command whole nations, order to snap their fingers, and people would lay at their feet. And we look at like, wow, look at how primitive these people are. And we're in the same damn condition. We're in the same status. No class consciousness, no class solidarity. And that's why I really can't, watch, because I can't just watch the Ball Chasers, because this is the kind of stuff that runs through my head. I look at all the little advertisements around the thing, and I look at the commercials, and I look at all, and I can't just sink into it. And I like my distractions as much as everybody else. I like my distractions as much as everybody else. I love TV as much as the rest of y'all. Well,